The Zephyrian Defense Council had called it the most impregnable fortress in known space. Orbital Station Epsilon 7 hung in the void like a crystalline spider, its 12 defensive rings spinning in perfect synchronization around the central core. Particle cannons tracked every speck of debris within 1,000 kilometers, while overlapping shield matrices created layers of protection that could withstand a supernova's dying breath. Admiral HFY examined the tactical display with 4 of his compound eyes, while the others monitored incoming reports. The station housed the collective's most precious asset, the Nexus Core, a quantum processing unit that coordinated the defenses of 17 star systems. Without it, their entire eastern frontier would collapse within hours. "Sir," his aide clicked nervously, "we're receiving multiple distress calls from cargo vessels in the outer system. Something about humans." HFY's mandibles twitched in what passed for amusement among his species. Humans? Those primitive mammals from the Sol system? What could they possibly— The sentence died as proximity alarms began screaming throughout the command center. On the main display, a single small craft emerged from hyperspace directly between the 7th and 8th defensive rings. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. "Nothing can exit hyperspace that close to the station." The gravity wells should have torn it apart, but there it was. A battered human freighter, its hull scarred by 1,000 journeys, drifting lazily toward the station's core as if on a pleasant Sunday cruise. The ship was so small it barely registered on their sensors, yet somehow it had bypassed 7 rings of the most sophisticated defenses in the galaxy. "Target acquired," reported weapons control, charging particle cannons. "Wait," HFY ordered, studying the vessel. Something was wrong. The ship's trajectory was too perfect, too precise. It moved through the defense grid's blind spots with impossible accuracy, as if its pilot knew exactly where every sensor shadow lay. "Scan the ship," he commanded. "Full spectrum analysis." The results made his blood freeze in his veins. "Sir, we're detecting no life signs. The ship appears to be operating on automated systems, but there's something else. We're reading massive electromagnetic interference from the vessel's cargo hold." On screen, the small freighter continued its impossible journey, slipping between particle beams like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Defense drones swarmed toward it only to find empty space. The ship had already moved to another position that shouldn't have existed in their tactical computers. "It's not possible," the tactical officer repeated, his voice rising in pitch. "Our defense matrix accounts for every possible approach vector. We've run millions of simulations." "Against your own species," a new voice interrupted. Every being on the command deck spun toward the source. Standing near the main tactical display as if he'd been there all along, was a human. Average height, unremarkable features, wearing a simple gray jumpsuit that bore no insignia or rank markers. But his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had stared into the abyss and found it wanting. "How did you— security? Protocols should have—" HFY's words tumbled over themselves. The human smiled, and somehow that expression was more terrifying than any weapon. "My name is Marcus Webb, Terran Intelligence Division, and you're right. Your station is unbreachable against any rational opponent." He gestured casually toward the display showing his ship. "You see, your defense grid was designed by logical minds to counter logical attacks. Every simulation assumed your enemies would take the most efficient route, use the most effective weapons, follow predictable patterns." Marcus walked slowly around the tactical display, his hands clasped behind his back like a professor delivering a lecture. The security guards hadn't moved. Somehow they couldn't seem to focus on him long enough to draw their weapons. "But humans," he continued, "we don't do logical. We do impossible. That ship out there? It's following a course that shouldn't work. It's using thrust vectors that violate basic physics, taking advantage of quantum fluctuations that happen once in a billion years, riding gravitational eddies that exist for nanoseconds." He stopped in front of Admiral HFY. "And it's piloted by an AI that doesn't think like your computers. It thinks like a human who's had too much coffee and not enough sleep. Pure chaos theory given digital form." The proximity alarms reached a new crescendo as the freighter approached the station's core. Defensive systems fired desperately, but their target danced between the beams like it was choreographed. "You want to know the beautiful part?" Marcus asked. "That ship has been transmitting a signal this entire time, a very specific frequency that resonates with your nexus cores. Quantum substrate. Not enough to damage it, just enough to create a sympathetic vibration." Admiral Kethva's worst fears crystallized as he understood. "You're not here to steal the core." "Oh, but I am." Marcus checked a device on his wrist. Right about now. On the display, the freighter's cargo bay doors opened. Inside, nestled in what looked like hastily welded brackets, sat an identical nexus core, but this one pulsed with an angry red light instead of the station's calm blue. "Quantum entanglement," Marcus explained conversationally. "Your core and mine were paired at the subatomic level 3 days ago, when my advanced team introduced nanoscale modifications into your power grid during routine maintenance. When I activate my core..." He pressed a button on his wrist device. Reality hiccuped. Space around the station twisted, and suddenly there were 2 identical cores occupying the same quantum state. The universe, offended by this violation of basic physics, chose the simpler solution. It switched them. Alarms screamed as the station's systems crashed one by one. Without the genuine nexus core, the defensive grid powered down, life support faltered, and artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "The thing about humans," Marcus said as emergency lighting bathed the command center in hellish red, "is we don't just think outside the box. We forget there was a box in the first place." He tapped his comm badge. "Web to extraction. Package secured. Initiating emergency teleport." "Wait." Admiral Kethva struggled to his feet as gravity systems failed. "This will leave 17 systems defenseless. Millions will die." Marcus paused, his form already beginning to shimmer with teleporter energy. "Then I suggest you negotiate. Humanity's terms are quite reasonable. We just want to be left alone." He smiled one last time. "But if you insist on threatening us, well, we've got more impossible ideas where this came from." The last thing Admiral Kethva saw before the human vanished was that terrible smile, and the realization that they had fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. Humans didn't follow the rules of warfare. They rewrote them entirely. In the void outside, the small freighter powered up its engines and casually flew away from the dying station, carrying with it the most advanced piece of technology in the collective, and the dawning understanding that humanity had just announced itself as a galactic power in the most human way possible. By doing the impossible and making it look easy,